Welcome to the 5-Year Plan podcast. I'm Joe Walker, here with Kevin Day. Hello, sir.
Hello, always a pleasure to be here.
Yes, it is. Pleasure to be joined by a special guest, a former Palace manager, amongst many other clubs. I seem to remember you saying Palace would be your last club in about 2000.
I did. I've been saying that for 20 years now, wherever I've gone.
Yes. Of course, you should recognise the voice. Neil Warnock, welcome to the 5-Year Plan podcast.
Nice, good to be here.
Yeah. I guess with the timing, given where we're talking, it's summer. We're still bouncing off the FA Cup win at Palace. Did you get a chance to watch that when it went?
I didn't watch it much. I just saw that sort of parts of it. I had something on that day, believe it or not. But it was just a fabulous result, really, for you. I mean, nobody expected that. I didn't expect it, and it's it just set the season, really, didn't it?
Well, you haven't watched it. We've watched it 297 times between us, so...
I can imagine what Croydon were like that night. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was good when I was there, and we struggled, but the atmosphere would have been fabulous, and they deserved it. I mean, the fans on, I was going to retire before I took that Palace job on first off, and Simon just tricked me into, come and have a look at the club for me, Neil. Will you just tell me what I need? And then within a week, I'm manager. But the coming out as a manager to the crowd and walking up to the halfway line, it's fantastic. Coming out to all the fans behind that goal where you come out, and then when you're coming up there, both at the far side, so vocal. It was fabulous for a manager. I never thought I'd have a manager in London. I used to think going down below Watford was the pits.
It's a lot greener than you thought.
I know.
I know. Ground, isn't it?
It is. And then Simon taught me into that, and then obviously I went to QPR after. It was, I had two great clubs, really.
But you only knew Palace fans really in adversity, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Things went with the administration and that, when out of... You became the focal point from which the fans merged behind it.
Yeah, it was difficult. I felt for Simon as well. Yeah. I think he was shortchanged, but it's one of those things that happened, and it was dealing with it really, and I felt that I had to be out there in the front. And I remember when it happened, we were on our way to Newcastle on the plane. Yeah. Got off the plane, got on the bus, and then the bus didn't take off, and I went to the driver. I said, "Sorry, what we're waiting for?" He said, "Sorry, sir, but unless you pay for the bus, we can't take you to the..." I said, "What are you talking about?" I ended up paying with my credit card to pay for the bus.
So you were 10 points down and 2,000 quid.
Yeah,
that's not right, is it?
I know.
Neil, the producer of this, James, very delicately said, "It'd be nice if I came along." So Neil had somebody closer to his own age in the room with him. So Joe's going to ask you the sort of topical questions, but I'm really interested in finding out how you think the game has changed. So Joe will ask you about Palace, but I want to talk to somebody about how you think football's changed. And we spoke to Roy Hodgson about 18 months ago, who said that he thought 4-4-2 would come back. He said he still thought it was the right formation for most teams to play, but just in terms of the press and the fans not being happy with it, you had to tinker with it. So what do you think of that? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I know what he means. I don't think you can plan any system, mate. Listen to the Man United manager, and they're going to play this way. Now, I think when you go into a club, you look at what players you've got and your best players you want in the team. So you pick a system to suit the players. That's how I've always gone about it. I've never gone in and like Amarin at Man United and said, I'm going to play 5 at the back. I'm going to do this because that's what I've done. Because he hadn't got 3 centre halves, so how can he play 5 at the back? But so every club's been slightly different. When I first started, I was at Scarborough, and believe it or not, and we'd only got one player signed in the summer. I signed 17 players out of about 35 people that came over, and the best 3 were the centre halves. So I automatically went 3 centre halves, and we won the league. And since then, I've played 4-4-2, 4-3-3. I think with 4-4-2, when you've got 3 really good midfield players against you, then I think, the wingers have to work in. They have to tuck in and work hard, whereas wingers really were always a luxury. Win you the game and lose you the game. So it's a matter of getting the right players in the area that you think, and you know.
Would that have been unusual for 3 centre backs in?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, 86. Yeah, 86. Blinking, eh? It was unusual. Yeah, but they were the best centre halves. So the best players I'd got up there. So you weren't going to leave any of them out. So then we worked on the full-backs pushing on, and then the midfielders and 2 up front. It does give you 2 up front, which I think's good. I think one on its own at times, even though I have played 4-3-3 in the last few years, when I've gone into rescue teams, like I did at Huddersfield and Rotherham, and you know, a couple of times. So I think depending on how you play and what players you've got.
Why didn't Carlisle come in for you?
Carlisle didn't come in for me, but one of the happiest times of my career was at Carlisle.
Was it?
Yeah, because when I was at Torquay, I think we had 15 games to go, and we looked like getting relegated out of the Football League. Yeah. And our penultimate game was at Carlisle, and we'd still needed 3 points, and we ended up beating you 2-1 or something like that at Carlisle, and made for an unbelievable trip home.
I bet it did.
You know, one of the best. And always a good club, always well run, always had a good pitch, and always vociferous. It was you know, a great win for me at that stage.
You're talking about you need a very particular type of striker up top on their own, if you're doing a free. I'm thinking of the options you probably had at Palace. Maybe a Scowcroft still there, Calvin Andrew. You thought of battering rams. I guess your second spell at the club, there perhaps wasn't that option there anymore. I guess you were probably going to fall up to Dwight Gales and Fraser Campbell's.
No, there was no pace the second time round. We hadn't got any pace. I mean, Dwight was one of the best, if not the best finisher in the penalty box I've ever had.
I've heard that.
But he couldn't. But he obviously getting around the place, depending on what system you play. But you give him a chance in the box, he'd score, and he's still doing it. Or he did it at Hibernia last year. Yeah. But to work hard, the teams I usually inherit are struggling, and we have to get points, and you really need everybody putting a shift in, really. So you forgo probably some ability. Yeah. For what's in here, really, and that's what I did, you know, more or less all my career.
We've seen in the Premier League, Neil, in the last couple of seasons, we talk about strikers. You've seen people like Mateta, Quiswood, Haaland, Alexander Isak, proper old-fashioned centre forwards, and it seems to me that more clubs need to use them because modern centre backs can't defend against them. They're not taught.
Well, they're not used to it, are they? Yeah. And the thing is. And it's the same. I used to get criticised about being a long ball merchant, but Liverpool play as many as what my teams do. But if you've got somebody up front where it sticks, you've got a chance because you bring your better players in, and we never really had anybody like that. No disrespect to the lads you've mentioned, but you know I mean, the first time round was Wilfred's time. Yeah. The second time round, I actually signed Wilfred back from Man United. Yeah. That was my first signing. I remember going in the office in London with Wilfred, talking him into coming back, you know, and you know, the ability that he had with his feet, unbelievable. So it was you know, it's getting the mixture. If I had Mateta, whatever they call him now, if I had him up front with Wilfred and another one out the other side, then you know, utopia for me that. But you needed somebody like him. But he wasn't the player he is now when he first came. No. I thought when I watched him a few times, leaves a lot to be desired. It almost seemed to leave something that just clicked in his. And all of a sudden, he was a threat. He was a menace. You couldn't mark him as a defender, and that's what you need. And I think he is instrumental in how well you did last year.
Well, he said, Mateta, that the change was that he told the boss. He said, I'm no good at training. I can't train. It doesn't work for me in training. But if you tell me I'm playing every week, then I'll score you goals.
Well, that's nothing dissimilar to what I signed when I was at Sheffield United. I signed Keith Curle. Okay. And Kevin Black was my assistant. And I remember Blackie saying, he always was thorough about what he did. Thursday was always set pieces and how the opponents play, blah, blah, blah. Curly couldn't play. He could only, you know, he'd train, he'd do a warm-up on a Friday and play. That's what Curly would do. His knees were absolutely cream crackered. So and Kevin used to go daft about all his plans, and I can't do this. You can't play Curly because I can't work on this. I can't work on that. I said, Kev, he's the best player on the pitch on a Saturday. He can do what he wants in the week. Yeah. So do what all your things without him. And Curly was the best player on the pitch on a Saturday.
Talking to Sheffield United, you won't remember this, but I interviewed you when I was doing Match of the Day 2. It was right in the middle of the West Ham situation. When
Tevez.
When the whole Tevez thing.
Yeah.
And you won't remember it because you were in such a bad mood that day that I didn't ask you a lot of the questions I was going to ask you. But I'd be interested to hear what you think of that in hindsight. But also, is that the sort of thing you'll be talking about in the Palladium show, letting us know?
Yeah, I've got stories about everything, really. And they just come to me. This morning I did a radio thing this morning, and 2 or 3 stories come up, what I've not even told before. And they just cropped up in my mind. When you get a 76, you forget things, but then all of a sudden something comes back and hits you. We were talking about Freddie Sears this morning, the goal, and then we were talking about something else.
The stanchion goal, of course.
Yeah, we were talking about that, and then obviously Ben Watson's penalty, and everything comes back. But in the show, I'm really enjoying. I go back and the stories. Yeah, I've got stories about the Premiership with Ferguson and Wenger and my old buddy Rafael Benitez. Things about those. Are you with me?
Yeah.
But I've also got stories about when I was at Scarborough.
Yeah.
When I was in the Sunday League managing. I've really enjoyed it. I think the shows are for me, really, not the audience. I've really enjoyed telling my stories and making people laugh. And some of the stories are real. There's 1 or 2 emotional stories which it's nice to get out of the way as well. So it's a good evening. It's different because the shows you go to in London, for example, they're all theatre musicals and it's nice to just go and relax and I hope people come and enjoy it, especially the Palace fans, because I had a great, I've got a great affection for them and always will, because I know it sounds silly. Because it was a time of my career which wasn't a happy time at the end because of what happened to Simon, but it was a time that gave me the love of the game back. The fans, I knew then I could motivate people, and I knew I could go on, and so from there, from adversity, I actually set off my career again, starting at QPR, and then I had a few more promotions. So I owed it a lot, that, but I didn't think I got a fair crack of the whip second time round. Yeah. But we're not going to that, Not on your website.
Probably not if you want to sell tickets for the show.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't mind him not coming. But carry on.
I think football fans are just as interested in the Scarboroughs and the Sunday League story as because for most of us, that's the level we can relate to more than the Premier League. It's like we'll never be in a Premier League dressing room, but you kind of think I might get in Scarborough's dressing room one day. So that level of football is something we're all interested in. And when push comes to shove, when you've got 11, 12, 13 players in the dressing room, it's exactly the same, isn't it? Whether it's at Old Trafford or whether it's in the Sunday League, it's the same atmosphere.
I think that's shown me, really, especially the last sort of 2 years, how the younger generation have related to me and what I put out on Twitter. Not that I even know how to do it. I just ring somebody up and tell them. But the Twitter thing, I've got a younger generation watching me play golf with my son and things like that. William, he's a pro now. He's he just qualified for the PGA, and I'm a hacker. But I do enjoy having a laugh with him because I tee off the fairways, me, and chuck the ball out the bunkers. I'm one of them players. But we enjoy it together, and I think. When I say about state, you've got to be, enjoy it by being disciplined. I once said, and now everybody uses it. All the youngsters come up to me and say it. So it's great to almost put something back into it. And it's nice to see not just the older members that sort of grown up with me, but the younger element, catching on board.
Yeah.
Just with that in mind about some stories that maybe haven't been thought about for a while, some players. Just think about that first spell at Palace, characterised by a lot of youngsters given opportunities. Some of them, quite a few of them, go on to play in the Premier League. That 11 that just misses out on the Bristol City playoff. I think 9 of the starting 11 go in the Premier League within 2-3 years. An incredible bunch of players. of those youngsters, there's this trend now, particularly in Premier League clubs. So you've seen people like Paul McShane and Tom Huddleston playing for Man United reserves. They're exclusively play just for the second string to essentially pull up the youngsters, show what the level of professionalism and dedication is required. Liverpool had with Jay Spearing, and the age of player that's doing that currently is around the same, that generation of Palace youngsters that you had in your first spell. Which of those would you think, from your memory in terms of their work ethic, how they applied themselves, would be the ideal Palace sort of reserve captain to lead the next generation?
I don't think we had many leaders.
Right.
Then, if I'm honest, I remember saying to Gary, I shouted Gary over, who's still there at the club, isn't he, Gary? Great lad. And I remember shouting him over probably one of the first games, saying to him, have we got any pace in the kids? Because we've no pace in the first team. And he said, well, we've got one or two quick. I said, well, who have you got? He pointed to a lad. Him there, what's his name? I said, what's his? Victor Moses. And what's his name over there? Sean Scannell. I said, all right. So anyhow, they carry on, and then, about 10 minutes later, I shout, Scan, you and Victor, come over here. So they run over like from the training with the kids. And I said, are you good enough to play in the first team, you two? Well, Victor never spoke hardly. He hardly said a word, Victor. And Sean's the same. He was so much. So I said, are you good enough to play in the first team? So they both went, yeah. I said, well, he says you're not. He says you're not good enough yet. Well, I'm going to play you Saturday. And that's how I threw him in, really. And Victor, he got me so mad because he had so much ability, Victor. And then he'd shirk a tackle and do this. And I remember once we went to Cardiff City and it was peeing down with rain. And I pulled him before the game, and it was rain coming off all over a show. And I said to him, tonight's the night, Victor, you've got to grow up now. And I don't be any disrespect to Bromley, but I says to him, if you're not careful, you can go two ways. Yeah. You can go to the very top, or you can end up playing for Bromley. He said, entirely up to you, Victor, but tonight I want to show you. I want you to show me which way you're going to go. And that night he was brilliant. He got man of the match. We won. I think it was only 1-0, but he was superb, and it was absolute. And I remember running onto him after the game, putting my arm around his shoulders, and I says, welcome to Victor Moses. Got gooses now talking about it. Yeah. And years later, he got transferred as a wing back to Chelsea. Never made a tackle in his life before I met him. And he ends up at Chelsea, and then he goes with Nigeria, and he gets player of the tournament. I can't remember what time it kicked off, but it was some unearthly hour in the middle of the night. And he got man of the tournament, man of the match tournament. And they presented it with him, and I text him on his phone, Victor, congratulations, can you remember Cardiff City? Yeah? And within 10 minutes, and you can imagine all what's going off around him, all the media and everything else, within 10 minutes he'd come back to me and get, Gaffer, how can I ever forget that? Thanks again.
Lovely.
And that to me, no wonder I've got gooses, because that's what I love about football. I love when something comes off and you contribute as a manager, not just to yourself, but to make people believe in themselves. And
it's interesting to hear you say that, because we've spoken to other Palace managers who mainly managed us at a time when survival was the job, and they all said, we can't risk kids.
Yeah, that's right.
Not in a relegation battle. They're not. But you were the one Palace manager who would consistently, without an injury crisis, would look at the youngsters and you'd bring them in. And it seems to me it's a kind of no-lose situation, because the fans love to see a kid.
They love their own grown.
Of course they do.
They do. That's why Wilfred's been so good in it, really, all the years. Because even when he has a bad spell, Wilfred, the fans are with him. And it helps the players so much, especially attacking players. Because I always criticise, when I've got a manager, I always pull a centre-half, like, say for example, Clint Hill or somebody, a centre-half, and I'd say, anybody can be a bloody centre-half, edit and kicker. Whereas these lads, like Victor and that, got to create every time they get a ball. I'll always give them a bit of leeway, where a centre-half, anybody can be a centre-half, type of thing. So I've always been like that with my forwards. Because it's all about loving them and making them feel good.
And was Wilf, would you say, the best Palace player you worked with?
The best ability. I once watched him in slow motion on a video, and I still couldn't see how he did this trick.
Wow, really?
It was so quick, the pull back around the corner flag. Yeah. I still didn't know how. And I'm watching it in slow motion, and I still couldn't see how his feet did it to get past this player. He was just, I mean, it was just so natural ability, wasn't it? And it was lovely to watch. Although I think he did make sure we got relegated at Cardiff that day when I think he was superb. But it wasn't that game that got us relegated.
Did you ever get frustrated with skillful players, though?
I think every manager gets frustrated because when you've got players like that, you expect them to be brilliant every minute, and you can't be like that because to create something is far more difficult than, like I said, defenders having to do. They know what they've got to do, and it's black and white, and it's straightforward. To create something, you have to have ability, you have to have the desire. You've got so many other things, and you for example, you might have had a bad night at home. You might not have slept well. You might, the missus might have been up all night with the little boy or something. There's so many things that go into being a creative player, and I always give and take a player like Wilfred or Victor or anybody else. Anybody could have a bad day with them because, like I said, they've got to create things.
There's a player I'm thinking of in terms of this, that show of faith. They actually probably let you down, but then you kind of gave them a second chance later on in their career. Ryan Hall. I remember my age group is that Wilf Scannell generation.
Yeah.
And quite a lot of them were secretly playing five-a-side down goals in Elmer's End.
Yeah, that's right.
And Ryan Hall, I remember there was a big incident with his team and his friend. And obviously you are in no position.
And he shouldn't have been playing, should it?
No. And you're in a helpless position there.
Yeah.
Someone's going to be angry that you did or didn't discipline, whatever. But you signed him later on at Leeds, didn't you? If I remember rightly. So.
I think when you get a situation like that, I remember with Ryan saying to him, "Look, I've got to come out with this, right? Because I'm the gaffer, and if I don't come out with this, I'm going to get slaughtered." But you shouldn't have done it, you know that. But it's gone now. Let's move on. But I'll keep as much as I can away from you. Yeah. But you better repay me on that ground. You better repay me with some performances, That's how I dealt with that, really. And I did sign him at Leeds. Yeah. I only signed him at Leeds because they wouldn't give me any money to sign anybody else. If I'm honest. I didn't tell him that, no.
One more player from that era. I went to school with the original... You think how much social media is intrinsic with managing players and the gaffes that are made? I think the first ever instance in football was Ashley Robinson on Facebook. I think he'd played 5-10 games. I went to school with him. He was a youngster at Palace, and he went on Facebook and said, I've got a trial with Fulham. I said, blinded. I'm going to be training with Jimmy Bullard tomorrow.
Wow.
And early days doesn't realise that gets broadcast to absolutely the whole world. He's still under contract at Palace. And this sort of back page of the Sun and about the Facebook fall, and you've got to manage that. I think he was out the door pretty soon after, but that was pretty early days.
I'm sorry, but I can't remember.
It was
so that's how much. That's how much.
Yeah. You think about.
But when you think about social media now, I mean, it's still the same. It's a nightmare now, isn't it? Really, for the young lads, if you're not careful. I mean, I've had a couple of lads. One lad got done at Middlesbrough for something he said in 2013. I mean, you say things when you're younger that you don't, you regret and you get on with it. But to do somebody like that and ban them when they said something 10 years ago, it's totally wrong, really.
You mentioned Leeds, Neil. Does it frustrate you sometimes? I mean, you've managed some very big clubs, but a lot of them became very rich after you managed them.
All of them, Neil.
And I'm not saying because you left they became rich, but does it frustrate you that you never got to work with the sort of budget that meant you could buy anyone you want, rather than having to be very careful about the economics and the finances?
I don't think so, because I think I am a manager who's better off saving clubs, working on, not misfits, but working on lads that wouldn't get in that top flight, and being the underdog. And going to places like that, even Cardiff, we went to Man United last game of the season at Old Trafford, and I said to the lads, listen, I know we're down, and we shouldn't have been down because the officials against Chelsea, we should have beat Chelsea, and Ed Smart, the linesman, I can't forget him, and Craig Porson, I'll be taking them to the grave. Them two, they shouldn't have disallowed the goal. They should have disallowed Chelsea's goal, but anyhow, so we were already down. And I think it's just one of them things that keeps in your mind, doesn't it? On that rolling about. It's it is sad at times.
I'm really pleased to hear you say that, because that's you talking like a fan then. Because every Palace fan watching this will go, yeah, Craig Porson. It's not just Cardiff.
Well, I got done with Craig Porson at Selhurst Park. John Terry did a free kick, did a foul, right? Early doors, and he got, and then he's putting his arm around the referee, Craig Porson, putting his arm around the referee, blah blah blah, and he never booked him.
Yeah.
And then my centre half, what's his name?
It might be Delaney.
No, not Delaney. The other one. Scott Dans. So then my centre half Scott made the similar tackle, nowhere near, probably not as bad. John Terry's later on, and he books him.
Yeah.
So I said to the media after the game, for example, lads, if that John Terry tackle had have been Scott Dans, he would have been booked.
Yeah.
That cost me about 12 grand. That. Yeah, and that was it. You know, if he's booked one, he should have booked the other.
Yeah.
But no, that wasn't it. It was, and it's always been the same. They always look after the big clubs. They always have done.
Yeah. Well, listen, if anybody watching this was fined for every time Mark Clattenburg did something against us, we'd all be skilled, basically. What do you make of the? It's difficult because every squad every year is better than the previous.
Just before you go on further, Clattenburg was at West. We did our game at West Brom when I was at Palace.
Yeah.
And we were winning 1-0, something like that. And Julian Speroni come for a ball, caught it, and the kid bashed him over, knocked him flying. Most obvious penalty, and he gave the goal. Clattenburg, yeah? And then I'm on my way home, and who rings me but Clattenburg? Yeah, Neil, I'm sorry, I should have given a foul, I should have done that.
Wow.
Yeah, right? And because he didn't want me to say out to the press, really.
Right. Wow.
And yet then in the press, he says something, or they said things, and nothing were mentioned about my phone call.
Wow.
About him phoning me. It all come out apparently about me wanting to do this or wanting to do that, and I never I can't use that word, but I never messed on him. I never messed on. I could have said to the press. The ref rang me after, but I didn't do that.
Well, he said in his autobiography the two biggest mistakes he made in football were both against Palace, so maybe that was one of them.
Oh God, dead right.
What do you make? It's obviously as each year goes by, each Palace squad is fitter and stronger than the one before it. But what do you make of the current manager and the current Palace squad? Who are the players in our squad that you particularly like looking at?
Well, you mentioned one now, that the striker he would get in any team of any age. Yeah. Really. From when I first started, he would get in my Scarborough team, and he would definitely get him in the last team I made. I think the ability. I've always loved the lad Wharton. I liked him at Blackburn. I recommended him to Everton when I was at.
Did you?
Yeah, when I first saw him, I told them to if I were them to get a grip of him. But then Palace jumped in, and good luck to him. I think he'll be a hell of a player, Will Wharton. Because he sees things early, he's a good passer of the ball. He keeps things going. Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to watch telly when black and white at the time, Bobby Charlton, and I used to think he was idle, Bobby Charlton, because he never ran about. I never saw him run about. Then when I watched him in real life, I realised that just by moving, he created the space. And he didn't have to run about all over the show. He was so clever upstairs, and I think Wharton's a bit like that. Creates the space without you seeing him.
He never takes three touches. First touch to control it, second one's a pass.
Yeah, and do you know that Shankly once said, I know I'm going into it, this is like my show by the way, Len. Shankly once said that the game is simple, it's players that make it difficult. and it's right, really. The game is simple. Cloughy used to, everything's simple. And Wharton's from that era. Yeah. He does everything simple. He never wants to complicate anything.
And how would you use a player like Eze?
Well, what would you say, Eze? Do what you want, Houston. We'll play 10 against 10, and you do what you want and win this game. He's got ability, hasn't he?
Oh my God!
You'll not keep him, will you? You'll not keep him.
I don't know. The fact that
depends how much money they're all spending the money, aren't
that's
they?
That's the thing. With Madueke going to Arsenal, that might be their big striker. If we can keep him and Gahey, then we've had a good close season.
You won't keep Gale.
Yeah.
No chance.
You've got to sell tickets for your show, Neil, by the way.
Yeah. Well, save your money on your tickets and come to my show. Yeah. No, you'll not keep Gale. I think you've got more chance of keeping Eze, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I do, because everybody's spending so many millions, aren't they, in the top flight? And he's not going to go anywhere light. No disrespect. He's not going to go to a bottom half team. He might as well stay at Palace.
Yeah. Okay.
So Yeah.
There's a centre half you worked with at Palace who ended up winning the Euros. I think he won the Nations League. He's still playing now. Jose Fonte, who I guess if people were being, you're quite harshly judged, I think, in terms of your playing style. As you said, Liverpool play as many long balls as you did. That's not it's the bigger picture here. I think traditionally, as a profile player, might not have been a centre half you'd have liked the look of on first introductions. I remember you carting away Leon Cork because he didn't have enough scars on his forehead for a centre half. I believe was the crazy said at the press conference.
Can't say things like that now.
No. What was he in terms of how? Because you've worked with some proper centre halves. We were thinking about. I loved Clint Hill. Sheffield United. You had Chris Morgan. Just would die for you on the pitch. What was he like? Could you really see that he had that kind of ceiling?
Yeah, Josie had some ability. Even I didn't see how much he had till I was managing him, because he could pass and everything. But I wanted to get a little bit more physicality out of him, and I think we did that. I think we give him a little bit more, because he knew that if he didn't win a tackle, I'd be onto him or a header, and so I think we made him a little bit more tougher. And I hadn't got a problem with him at all, really, Jose. I'll tell you about another centre half that we should have had. Yeah. So when I was it the second time or the first time? I can't remember. Anyhow, I went to the chairman and said, I need a centre half, pre-season, and I'd sent Ronnie Jepson up. There were one up in Scotland. Yeah. So I said, go and have a look at this centre half, will you, Ron? And up he went. He come back and said, yeah, Gaffer, he'll do for us. So I told the chairman, I told him who it was. I said, he'll cost us 3 to 4 million, but he's good. So he said, well, just leave it with me. And he went off and talked to his data lads, or data is it? Yeah. And they obviously looked at all these players on computer and come back to me the following day and said, Neil, I'm sorry, but the lads don't think he's quick enough. I said, what do you mean quick enough, Chairman? I said, he's not quick enough in your eyes, because he never has to break sweat in Scotland. He reads the game so well. He doesn't have to break sweat. He says, no, I'm sorry. So he says, I don't want to do it at the moment. I said, all right, fair enough. So the same player then, I saw him a few years later. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? Yeah. So I saw him a few years. I saw him a few years later when we played Liverpool. So he'd gone to Southampton for 3.5 million. And then he went to Liverpool, and he came to me. He said, you could have signed me, couldn't you, Mr. Warnock? It's Mr. Warnock he got. I said, Virgin, I could have done. I bet you're glad you're too slow. Yeah.
We're running out of time, unfortunately. But can I just finish with 2 questions? One of which you'll have heard a lot recently. But the first question is, are you done with football now? And the second question is, can you tell us a little bit more about the show, who the guests are going to be, where we can get to?
Well, for the show, I've got Simon coming on. I asked him, because he's got a few good stories about when I was there as well, and then for QPR, I've got Clint Hill and Sean Derry. Well, they both are the same. Are you with me? And then I've got obviously Tommy Smith and Jamie Mackey coming on from them. So I've got a few. They're only going to be on sort of 20 minutes, but it just gives me another flavour of what's going off. And so that was the show. And now, what were your first question?
Just are you done with football now? Is that it?
Well, when I came down the first time to manage Crystal Palace, I had retired then. So you tell me what year that was. And I've retired, and I think I've had more than Frank Sinatra, haven't I? Comebacks, really. I think I've retired about 8 times now. So you never say never. I'm even enjoying. I only go to Turkey once a week, and none of the directors know much about the game inside. So I've helped to get a manager, and it's a good little club that. Yeah. And they help me. They give me when I got to the sack at Notts County, I remember turning Chelsea and Sunderland down, and when I was at Notts County. We got to the top flight. When you think about where Notts County are now, and then when I got to the top flight, he sacked me 6 months later. So I went to Torquay, believe it or not. And I only had 14 games to save them, and I saved them. But that gave me the love of the game, because I got lads on 100 quid going through brick walls for me, and it was lovely, and I really enjoyed that. So I owed a bit. So when they asked me to help them, I said I would do. And it's like I say, a lovely club. They get 4,000, 4,500 at home games. It's a lovely atmosphere. All the kids in town wear Torquay shirts. There's no Man United, Liverpool, or all like that. And it is just it just gets me out, because when you've been in the game as long as me, when you call it a day, it's so difficult. You can't explain it, because you are selfish as a manager regarding your family to do. I mean, I've been a manager 45 years.
Wow.
And so you don't realise until you leave that to get that adrenaline kick is very difficult. You can only go to the garden centre and have a coffee so many times. You can only take the dog for a walk so many times, and you have to have your brain. That's why I've enjoyed doing the shows, because my brain's ticking all the time with my shows, and I just can't drink now, because I have 2 drinks, I've gone. So I just have to make sure I don't drink now.
I think that's us for time. Neil, amazing. Thank you very much for joining us, and good luck at the show. A couple of us will be there.
You'll all be there, will you?
Yeah, 18th of September.
And tell the fans it's great. They'll enjoy some of the stories. They'll enjoy some of them. Look forward to seeing you all.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Cheers.
Thanks, Neil.